plan going into Rampage this year was to not blow myself to pieces. You know, I wanted to build a fun line. I wanted to build something quite chilled, something I knew I could ride. But most of all, it was just about enjoying it and building a line that I was comfortable with. There was no plan to try and be overly ambitious and go in and try and win the thing. Building and planning a line at Rampage is probably one of the hardest parts to the event. You know, you've got this small period of time where you have to go in, you have to decide where you're going, you need to go in comfortable with what you can and can't do. You know, it's easy to go in and be overly ambitious and build something too hard, but it's also easy to go in and be too cautious. You need to allow yourself that time to acclimatize to the size of everything at Rampage. So to hit that sweet spot on the very first day is very difficult and something I've always struggled with in the past. One of the hardest things about building something enormous in your line is the mental side. I think quite early on you will find this particular gap or drop that you know you want to do, and as the week goes on you gradually build it and see the scale of it. But as soon as you know you're going to hit it, it's on your mind. It's the first thing you think about when you wake up. You know, you wake up in the night thinking about it. It's on your mind all the way up until the moment you test it, which is very difficult. You're constantly thinking about it, second guessing yourself. Is it too big? Have I built it right? There's so much going on in your mind. There's no escape from it all the way up until the moment you actually ride off it and test it. The thing that draws me to an event like Rampage is the challenge. It's this enormous challenge to see if you can turn up, you can plan something you know that is going to be very hard to ride. It's a challenge to build all week. It's a challenge to decide what you're going to do and stick to it. And it's an enormous challenge to test it and ride it at the end. But I love that feeling. I love that kind of that approach to being out in the desert and being able to do whatever you want with a group of boys that are ready to go into war with you, really. The drop I'd found this year was enormous, and it wasn't going to be. You know, there was never this grand plan for this drop to be huge, but it was what we found, and I knew I would be able to do it. And it was a big drop. It was over 60 foot tip to tip, and the sweet spot of the landing was going to be even further than that. So we knew it was going to be hard. I'd never hit anything of this size before. It was probably one of the biggest drops I've ever seen, and the challenge was, you know, hit it, but hit it perfectly. The main problem with designing and building one of the biggest drops you've ever done is that at some point you've got to test it. The build took us quite a long time on this drop, but there was quite a few days once the riding started where the drop was there and ready, but I wasn't quite prepared to hit it. The day that I did end up riding it, it kind of crept up on me. I'd ridden some of the line above. It was a bit breezy, it was a bit gusty, but I decided it should be okay and I wanted to get it done. I did a few roll-ins to it and decided it was going to be on, and now was the time to hit it. And it's hard to describe the feeling in that moment. You know, it's a combination of excitement, of nerves, and of just pure fear as well. And I lined up on the start of the roll-in, and after I got the speed right, I knew it was time to go. So I dropped in, turned into the drop, and as soon as I popped off the lip, I thought, this is bad. I've gone too deep on this. And the only way to describe it is that feeling you get on a roller coaster when your stomach just drops. And to add to that, the wind gusted me slightly and blew my front wheel out. And I knew it was going to be bad news from that moment. So I braced. I remember hitting the landing and the bike just ripping me round to the side and then high-siding. And then that's all I remember from it. Looking back at a big crash, it's easy to say, I wish I'd not done this or that, or start to regret things, but I would never regret trying something big or pushing too hard. An event like Rampage is what I love doing. I think it's so important to turn up and to push as hard as you can and set yourself these challenges. And that's why I ride bikes. That's what I love doing, whether it's a filming project or an event. I love the challenge of pushing myself to the absolute limit, and that's what I enjoy doing. You know, that's what it's all about for me.